Over the past year, India and Canada's diplomatic relationship has seen severe public hostility. Yet simultaneously, they are quietly building massive new macroeconomic partnerships. The clearest evidence is a recent nuclear energy agreement. India has secured a 24,000 crore rupee deal to import Canadian uranium. Alongside this raw commodity flow, policymakers in both countries have set a concrete, aggressive target to push total bilateral trade to $50 billion. These massive economic commitments are acting as a catalyst. The sheer scale of the capital involved is forcing a quiet, deliberate shift in Canada's internal security doctrine. The necessity for stable energy supply chains and reliable capital flow overrides temporary domestic political posturing. The previous era of Canadian policy toward India was heavily guided by Justin Trudeau's public statements, defined by friction and accusations against the Indian government. We are now seeing that posture challenged by the rising influence of economic pragmatists who are focused on stabilizing the relationship through rigid financial targets. To accurately map this pivot, we have to look past the politicians. The actual evidence lies in the newly declassified intelligence mandate from Canada's premier spy agency. Shifts in resource allocation within an intelligence agency serve as a concrete indicator of a state's strategic priorities, providing more clarity than diplomatic statements. The ultimate authority on Canada's internal threat matrix is the Canadian Security Intelligence Service. Their newly published public report, available on the Canadian government's digital portal, provides undeniable proof of this operational shift. If we bypass the standard sections on cybersecurity and foreign espionage, we find the critical data in the chapter titled Violent Extremism. Here, the report relies on a core operational framework: politically motivated violent extremism, or PMVE. Categorizing a group under this PMVE label means the Canadian state has authorized its intelligence apparatus to actively monitor and disrupt them. It strips away any assumed political protection. Buried within that section is a specific, highly targeted designation: 4 letters, CBKE. This intelligence document explicitly defines CBKE as Canada-based Khalistani extremists. The inclusion of this formal intelligence designation contradicts years of direct political deflection by certain Canadian leaders regarding separatist movements. Domestic political factions have historically denied the existence, or at least the severity, of these Canada-based extremist elements. Creating a dedicated intelligence acronym shows the threat is no longer considered an isolated issue. It is now a systemic, structural target for the Canadian state. The CSIS report grounds the severity of this designation by referencing the upcoming 40th anniversary of a specific tragedy. The bombing of Air India Flight 182 remains the deadliest terrorist attack in Canadian history. The report links the suspects to these factions. Shifting from history to current operations, the intelligence details how these extremists currently exploit Canadian democratic institutions. This vector flowchart visualizes the intelligence agency's claim. It shows how funds are quietly raised from unsuspecting community members under false pretenses, funneled into local institutions, and then secretly diverted toward violent activities. The report sets a strict legal-bound separatist advocacy, which remains protected speech in Canada, and organized material support for violence. Canadian security services are shifting their operational focus toward mapping and dismantling the specific financial supply chains that sustain these extremist elements. To maintain a complete picture, we have to look at another section of this same document. The report pivots sharply to the header Foreign Interference. In this section, Canada controversially groups India alongside hostile state actors like Russia and China. The nature of the threats, however, is categorized very differently. China's interference is described as systemic, civilian, and military espionage, such as using fake job advertisements on mainstream websites to steal classified data. By contrast, India's inclusion in this category is strictly tied to the 2023 assassination of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. It represents targeted interference rather than broad infrastructural data theft. This distinction matters. The intelligence assessment views China as an existential threat to its infrastructure, but views India as a jurisdictional threat to its immediate physical sovereignty. What we are watching is a highly complex diplomatic maneuver executed through intelligence classifications. In one lane, by formally targeting Canada-based Khalistani extremists, Canada fulfills India's primary security demand, clearing the way to secure lucrative economic ties. In the second lane, by maintaining the foreign interference allegations regarding Nijar, the Canadian state protects its domestic political boundaries and asserts its need to maintain absolute domestic sovereignty. This dual-track framework is an exercise in geopolitical pragmatism. It allows both nations to cooperate quietly on capital and energy, while continuing to disagree publicly. This illustrates a foundational rule of international relations. Nations do not have permanent friends or enemies. They only have permanent interests. This map shows the scale of those interests. The alignment is being forced by massive stakes, specifically the flow of uranium and the $50 billion trade corridor bridging North America and South Asia. A reliable nuclear supply chain and high-volume bilateral commerce simply carry more weight than lingering diplomatic grievances. The formal recognition of the CBKE threat demonstrates how the demands of energy security and bilateral trade are actively being integrated into Canada's domestic security policy.
If you value clarity over chaos, explore more on Clear Lens X.